Welcome back to another amazing episode of Getting Open. I am your host, Andrea Miller. My guest today, Nicole Sachs, guys, she is amazing. If you have a chronic condition such as fibromyalgia, migraines, dermatological issues, if you have chronic pain, if you have anxiety that's either debilitating or just really rough, or if you want to avoid those things, I have the most amazing episode ready for you because here's the kicker. The treatment is free. So let's get into it. I am so excited to introduce my amazing guest. She is seriously my new favorite person, and we just met, but oh boy, meet Nicole Sachs. Nicole is a psychotherapist, leading mind-body clinician, host of the Cure for Chronic Pain podcast, and she is the author of multiple books, including the brand new one that comes out today called Mind Your Body. Nicole was diagnosed with the degenerative spinal condition in her teens and faced a future of debilitating pain and severe limitations. After discovering Dr. John Sarno's work in her mid-20s, she reclaimed her life through something called mind-body medicine, which we will be talking about a lot. She transitioned from Sarno's patient to his colleague, lecturing with him at NYU, supporting his patients through her private psychotherapy practice, and continuing his amazing work. Nicole has successfully supported hundreds of thousands of people suffering from chronic pain, anxiety, and other chronic conditions. And wow, does she ever have some brilliance and wisdom to share with us today. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Wow, what a great intro. Thanks, Andrea.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Like I said, just before our prep, I am genuinely blown away by your book. I was able to read the galley, so I got it early and consumed it voraciously. I've been telling everybody about it. So I'm really excited to bring this episode to my audience because I do feel like in a lot of ways, it's a game changer. But of course, you've got a compelling story that got you into it, and you're so passionate, and you have so much research and case studies and conviction. So let's start with your story and how this whole amazing journey of yours began.
Yes. All right. Well, as many people do who live in the healing space, I came by it honestly. I found myself at the age of 19 totally flat on my back. So as most people would have heard it, my back went out. I was at college, I was a freshman, and it was so severe that my parents actually had to come and collect me and carry me home. And it's important that I say this because I always want people to know that just because we're talking about the paradigm of mind-body medicine, we are never saying the pain is in your head, that you are hysterical, that you are overreacting, that you are overly sensitive. So important to understand that I was 19 and my father was carrying me to the bathroom. Okay, so we are not saying that this pain is not real. We are just taking a closer look at why we experience pain and symptoms. So we'll get much more into that. But my story goes that I went through all the tests as everyone should. I always believe in getting checked out when you're in pain or you have symptoms. And they discovered a finding. And it is called degenerative spondylolisthesis. It is an abnormality of the lower spine. And of course, given the information that my doctors had at the time, and many doctors still have, of course they made the logical conclusion that that abnormality was the reason for my pain. It made no sense to think of it any other way. And so they basically said to me, I was 19 and otherwise healthy, that although spinal fusion surgery was the recommended treatment, I could wait because, I was 19 and I wasn't planning to do some crazy manual labor. But they did say that this was the way I had to live in order to survive and to keep myself from having a really catastrophic incident. No more travel, no more sports, no more exercise, really.
Well, barely even ride in a car. I mean, it was like severe, like,
It
it's like,
was
whoa.
crazy. They said if I rode in a bouncy car for more than an hour, I could destabilize my back. So any kind of travel had to be very carefully weighed with the cost benefit analysis. And then the kicker, of course, was that the likelihood that I would have a biological child was very slim because it would require probably 7, 8 months of bed rest because of the potential damage to my back. So at 19, I was delivered this life/death sentence. And, I think part of me heard them, part of me dissociated because it was such a trauma, part of me just repressed it and said, okay, well, this is not happening today, so I'm not going to deal with it. But in any case, with enough steroids and muscle relaxers and painkillers, I moved from acute pain to chronic pain, which means that I was able to go back to school with a handicap sticker on my car, and I was able to return to life, but was always the girl with the bad back, was always saying, oh, I wish I could come to that. I can't, that kind of a life. The kid thing I just put on the side burner because I couldn't even deal with the enormity of that at the time. So as the years went on, I got my bachelor's in psychology. I was getting my master's in social work. I was planning on becoming a therapist anyway. That was my interest. And I came across the work of Dr. John Sarno. And what I understood at the time, and this was many years ago, was that Sarno was saying we live in a mind-body system. And so sometimes when you're having a really big feeling that you don't have a way to express or you don't really understand, you might feel it in your body. So you might feel rage and you might have back pain. Like I got it enough to get that. And I said to myself, okay, first of all, this sounds crazy and weird, but also my diagnosis is so grim. How is it going to hurt me to do a little science experiment on myself? So this is kind of the way I entered into this in my early to mid 20s. I'm in grad school. And so when my back would really ache, I would remember Dr. Sarno and I would say, why might I be really angry? It was like the first kind of touching into it. And I would come up with something. I was an introspective person and I would come up with something and I would go, you know what? That really does make me mad. And I would acknowledge it. And then the wildest thing happened. I would get busy doing something and I would attend to my back a few minutes later and I would be like, oh my God, I don't feel my pain. And that was and this is a way simplistic way to say it for people who are new to this work, but you have to know we all have these moments in life, right? These inflection points, these whispers that come to us that say, there may be more. There may be more to understand or to know. And that was important for me. Even though it certainly wasn't the end of the story, it opened me. And so I moved through my life. I ended up, through my understanding of mind-body medicine, releasing my need to attach to my diagnosis. I had 2 children. I exercised till the day they were born. I had no complications. I had no pain. And then, and I always say recovery is not a straight line, and it's so important that people understand this. I had understood the theory, but I had never done the work. I had never really done the work to regulate my nervous system. I didn't understand the brain science. I understood it so like just below the surface.
Just kind of superficially, like enough to make it somewhat effective, but not maybe to transform.
Exactly. And even though that I did obviously have enough of a transformation to be able to live my life, there was something that was missing. And I seek when I teach and when I write to give people the whole story, because if there's anything I can be is just totally and completely unabashedly human with you. Because when I'm human with you, I give you permission to be human with yourself. So,
and that is honestly, like I was boo-hooing in your book, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, because I want everybody to kind of get the sort of basic story teed up and why this is so compelling. I also want to actually say, you put this beautifully in your book. When you talk about chronic pain, you also emphasize it's things like anxiety and chronic conditions that Western medicine has a really tough time providing a solution for. So if someone's like, yeah, nah, I don't have chronic pain, this episode's not for me, I want to say hang in there, because chronic conditions and things like anxiety, and I think there may be others that I want to ask you about. So I wanted to emphasize that. But also, I love your passion and your honesty. And it, like I said, it brought me to tears. I was like, snap, she's getting in my head and in my heart. So we'll get into some of the, what you're actually prescribing people to do. But so yes, you got the brutal honesty. You're willing to tell the truth. And that's, we'll talk more about the whole truth thing because I think it's really important. But okay, so so things were going along pretty well. And then what happened?
So then I was with my 2 kids. My son was 10 months old. He was toddling around our deck, and there were 2 steps that went from the deck to the driveway, and I didn't want him to toddle over it. So without concern about my back, because nothing was wrong with me, I picked up the little walker and I brought it down the 2 steps, and it felt like a hot knife was dragging through my back. The pain was electric. The pain took my breath away, and I was in a panic. I put him down, I hobbled into the house, and I began then the darkest part of my journey. And that's why I always want to connect to anyone who is suffering, that I get it. I have lived it. I have been there. And essentially all of the mind-body work went out the window, because when we are human and in fear, we are our smallest version of ourselves. We're the lowest vibration because we are looking to survive. And I ran back full steam to the medical model, 3 days a week in physical therapy, all back on all the meds, orthopedic surgery consults again, just even therapeutic massages, which on the day I got them always made me feel worse, which now I understand why, understanding the brain science. So, and I really want to speak to the point that this is not only about chronic pain. It so happens that pain for me was an entry point. It was an invitation into the acknowledgement of some things that needed to be dealt with in my life. And oftentimes it is because pain, from the perspective of the brain and the nervous system, is a protective posture. When we are going through life, so let's say, for example, you are running from a predator. I talk about this example in the book. If you were to break your ankle while you were running from that predator, you would not feel the pain. You could run on that broken ankle until you reached perceptive safety. Door is slammed, door is locked. At that moment that you reach perceptive safety, your ankle will explode in pain, because the human body, any pain or sensation we feel, is information and strong stimulation to get our attention to say, oh my goodness, there's a problem and it needs to be addressed. Because in early evolution, if we broke a bone or if we cut our skin and we didn't feel the pain, we would die. You have to attend to that which is, injured in your body.
Well, I even want to chime in with that. I personally don't have a chronic condition or chronic pain, but your book hugely resonated with me. And my son has a chronic condition called EOE, and I want to ask you about that. It's chronic inflammation, and inflammatory diseases is something you talk about a lot in the book. They manifest in a lot of different ways. My feeling is wherever the hurt is, whether it's a back pain or like the anxiety in your chest, or that terrible feeling of discomfort, emotional hurt. Like, to me, it's your body saying, yo, pay attention. In fact, when I was in my 20s working for another company, my friend and I would always joke about, like, I'd get stomach aches and her face would break out. And it's like you talk about Bessel's book, The Body Keeps a Score. Like, our bodies are brilliant in saying, yo, something's off. I'm breaking out. I have a stomach ache, whatever it is. And so often we just want to take a pill or, just ignore it or whatever. And I think, this mind-body medicine and your book, Mind Your Body, really have opened my eyes even more, and I'm really into this stuff, even more about the role that our emotions, particularly our repressed emotions, are playing in our well-being. And we'll come back to that. But finish the story, because you had the huge breakthrough, and that's what changed everything.
The story is so nuts. So essentially, that was a year of very dark chronic pain, which culminated, and I did all the things.
Well, and self-doubt, right? I mean, it was chronic pain. It was self-doubt. You say you were an unkind mother, which I can totally relate to, right? When you're in pain and stress. I have two of the most amazing kids in the world, but I screwed up sometimes, 2 teens. So I appreciated your honesty, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it's important to say that, yes, pain is both physical and emotional. We feel things in our heart and we feel things in our body, and they're literally interchangeable, which you'll learn when you learn more about this work. And so essentially, not only was I in physical pain, I was full of shame. I was full of shame not only for my daily behavior because I couldn't always keep it together because I was in so much pain. I was terribly ashamed that I didn't listen to those doctors. They had told me when I was 19, don't do this. And now look what I had done.
Oh my gosh. I see. I thought you were going to say I was ashamed that I wasn't taking my own medicine. That's interesting. So then you were like, I really effed up.
Exactly. And this is why I love Malcolm Gladwell's concept of the tipping point, because what I seek to do and what I really believe is going to happen with this book and with whatever comes from it is that because the common conversation has always been that the medical model is top of the food chain, the shame I felt was that I didn't listen to what was told to me through that lens. And what I hope through opening each person one at a time to this work is that we reach that tipping point and it no longer is required to feel shame that you didn't listen to this take a pill surgery method, because there are certainly times for pills and times for surgery, but many, many times those things will not resolve your pain. Those things will not improve your life. And even the doctors who are offering them will say, we can try this, but there's no guarantee of pain cessation. So just really important.
Well, hang on. Let me just chime in and add the number one killer of both men and women is heart disease worldwide. I mean, that is, yes, partly lifestyle, but it hugely has to do with the stress in your life. That is a chronic, dysregulated nervous system, right? And when I think about just, and you rightfully say, listen, if you have a cancer cells that, you need to see the oncologist, you need to see the surgeon. If you have an infection, take your penicillin. You do call out the many, many ways that modern Western medicine is genuinely a lifesaver. And yet, so many of us have lived firsthand its insufficiencies. And when I think about, honestly, even when I haven't gone to medical school. I'm really curious. Hey, doctors out there, let me know, how much time are you guys spending on learning about, the impact of people's emotional lives on their physical well-being? I bet 0 to next to 0. And it reminds me of just how, when I have plenty of doctor friends, how little education they get in medical school on nutrition. And we know now the just unbelievable impact that nutrition has on our bodies. And I think we're finding out more and more. And so when I think about what you and Dr. Sarno and other of your colleagues are doing, I realize that there may be some skepticism, and I want to get back to that. But I also go just because they're not teaching it doesn't, it's like the modern medical system has some catching up to do, is how it seems like to me.
Yeah, and I promise you I'm going to complete this story if it takes us the whole conversation.
We're zigging and zagging.
But it's good. It's good. I want to say something to your point, because I think it's really important for people to hear. I start, when I have a completely new audience, I start with saying, what I'm about to teach you, what is about to potentially change your life, I want you to know it's something you already believe. Let me prove it to you. And I could say to a room of 1,000 people, raise your hand if you've ever had a stressful day and gotten a headache. Every hand in the room goes up. I don't know one person in the world who would say, I've never had a headache from a long, hard day where I was really put upon and I was stressed. And I said, okay, great. Every hand is up in the room. I said, keep your hand up if you ran to the emergency room that night for a CT scan of your brain. Sure, you had a brain tumor. And of course, everyone laughs and all the hands go down. And I said, you see, you already believe what I'm about to teach you. An emotional stimulus can cause a physical reaction. A stressful day can cause a headache. And I'm like, okay, let's take it further. If you hear about a comedian who's about to go on stage, run to the bathroom and throw up, do you think they just got the worst stomach virus or they ate something bad? No, you think they're scared and nervous and it made their stomach sick. And then, of course, the most ubiquitous example, what happens when we're really moved or we're really sad? Water falls out of our face. Tears are the most basic human mind-body example. So essentially, if you know for sure in your heart that emotional stimuli cause physical reactions in the body, there's no doubt we're connected. It applies to everything.
Yeah, if you take it to the end of the logical conclusion, you would say, okay, there's much more that can be mined for healing. Okay, so finish your story because I want to have you really map kind of the mind body medicine and really the big ideas of your new book, Mind Your Body.
So essentially, I end that year. I'm in a deli with my 2 younger kids, and they are acting out in typical toddler ways, grabbing stuff and running around, and I'm trying to pay, and I get them by the wrists, and we go out to the car, and I feel my back is seizing up because I'm so out of control and full of feelings and embarrassed of what happened in that deli. And when I got, and this is of course a true story and a very important moment of my life, when I got to the car, my back had locked up so badly and the pain was so great, I could not get my children in the car. And I just stood in that parking lot with my window on my head on the window, and I cried. And I just reached we all need to reach our rock bottom, right? Rock bottom is a fantastic foundation on which to build everything. And I got them home somehow, and I got them to bed. And I remember sitting in my room and just looking out the back window into the stars, into the trees, and just surrendering and saying, okay, I've tried it this way. I know about mind body medicine. I contacted Dr. Sarno, who was still in practice at NYU. I went in to see him as a patient, and I said, teach me how to do this for myself. And he explained to me then the intricacy of the brain science, something that I had not yet understood, which is the human animal is not meant. And I, by the way, explain this all in the book. The whole first third of the book is dedicated to brain science and to mindset and to preparing you for most robustly doing this work for yourself, because there are 3 legs of the stool and they all need to be strong to stand, which is believe, do the work, and patience and kindness for yourself. And none of this is light. Believe is my prescription is knowledge. You must understand what's going on to regulate your nervous system to the place where you feel safe enough to do this. Do the work, which we'll talk about, the emotional excavation, which once again sends a message of safety to the nervous system, and then some sort of a self-compassion practice, because we are so unaware of how awful we are to ourselves that it's like bailing out a sinking boat with a hole in the bottom. We must learn to be aware of our own self-talk because it's incredibly toxic. So he explained this to me in a way I could understand. And he explained to me, he looked at my films, he looked at my MRI, and he said, yeah, you have what they call, and this is also important for people to get, a normal abnormality. We are human. You are probably never going to mistake, unless you have identical twins as best friends, you're probably not going to mistake one of your friends for the other. We look different on the outside. Our bodies look different on the inside. This is going to sound like an incredibly controversial thing to say, but I promise you, not only is it backed by scientific studies, but by years and years. I'm over 20 years in the field. Bulging discs do not cause pain. Spondylolisthesis does not cause pain. Many, many gut irregularities and findings do not cause stomach upset. The weather, food choices do not cause migraines, nor do they cause pelvic pain. And I know if you're out there listening and one of these things is going on for you, you're like, that's a bold thing to say. Study after study, the most recent one out of Harvard, they're testing people with abnormalities and without abnormalities and finding no statistical significance between the suffering populations and these findings. This brain science that is behind why, and we'll get to the inflammation, why the brain and the nervous system send messages of inflammation, muscle constriction, spasm, neuropathy, all the things we're experiencing in our body, it says the pain is as real as if your limb was severed. This is not about a different experience of pain. It's about opening to a curiosity, replacing certainty, replacing skepticism and fear with curiosity and saying, well, if the treatments I'm trying in traditional medicine are not working, if a doctor has said to me, there's nothing else I can do for you, whatever it is that wherever you're finding yourself, why might the brain be sending these pain signals? So Dr. Sarno explained this to me as well. And, I have done a tremendous amount to evolve his theories. He helped me understand the basis of it, and through my own work and on myself and others, I've evolved them. But the most basic thing I'll say to people is, there is a reservoir. Picture, like, if you're a visual person, there is an imagined reservoir inside of you. Picture like a clear science beaker. And in it is contained, along the lines of Van der Kolk and a lot of different really, really widespread authors, the things, the trauma, the daily struggles, the things that are impossible to completely feel. It is inconvenient. Rage, shame, grief, terror, the things that are attached to the past, but also are just triggered in our everyday lives or through our personalities, perfectionism, people pleasing. A lot of women go through this. It's a lot of studies lately. When you are having to repress that amount of emotion, it sends a signal of danger to the nervous system because the brain seeks predictability. And this is, like I said, all backed in science. The brain seeks a familiar hell over an unfamiliar uncertainty, no matter what, until you are able to be awake and aware and do things differently to change your neural pathways. And so when we're living unconscious, it's like that famous Jung quote, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we'll call it fate. It's the same thing with mind-body medicine. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our migraines and we'll call it fate. It will direct our back pain. It will direct our skin disorders and our irritable bowel and like you said, it's not just for people in, quote, chronic pain. Our lack of energy, our lack of joy for life, our inability to be present in the moment, our struggle.
So hang on. So what you're saying is, just to summarize, what you're saying is that these kind of chronic conditions, chronic pain, or frequent experiences, it's less about what's happening physically, and it's more about what we experienced growing up, whether it's, trauma with a big T or a little t, our, combination of that, plus our daily stresses, plus, personality proclivities like people pleasing and needing to be liked and, swallowing, not speaking up and all those things. So are you saying it's that combination, that emotional reservoir that's actually at the root of these physical manifestations? Is it the emotional challenges that we're not able to face? Is that what's causing so much hurt and heartache and disruption for people?
Yes, and the best way, I understand if I just said yes to that, it's so easy to dismiss. So I'm going to give another metaphor because it's really, really, I need to hammer it home. Picture if you have a building and that building, and this is very prescient right now as I am in West LA and we are dealing with the fires, and that's a whole other conversation, but it's a very, very important metaphor. Let's picture a building that is on fire. Okay, so the building is on fire, which means there's a problem in this building. So the fire alarm goes off. Now I want you guys to picture like kind of like a cylindrical red fire alarm, plastic. Okay, and it's rolling and it's screaming, right? Okay. So what is the fire alarm? The fire alarm is the indication that there is a problem because there's a fire in the building. So now the fire company comes. Firefighters come out with their hoses. In the case of chronic pain or any of these things we're talking about, the firefighters start dousing the alarm. They are dousing the alarm. There's a problem and it's screaming and they see it and it's obvious and it's getting their attention and they're dousing the alarm. Meanwhile, over here, the fire is raging. As we both know, they could douse that alarm from now until the cows come home, and the fire will continue to consume the building, and B, the alarm will never go off. So in this scenario, the fire alarm is the migraine, is the stomach issue, is the chronic whatever, is the chronic.
It's something in your body that is expressing, it needs help. But why is that? I mean, I don't like in a way, why is it it feels really mysterious. Like, when I think about, we're sort of Darwinian creatures. If this is the case, why is that? Do you know? Like, why is it something that's secret?
It's
okay.
Well, here's why. It's actually much more simple. I think as human beings, because we've got such big brains, we do tend to overcomplicate things. So So the reason it happens is based on evolutionary biology. Like I said, we talked about a minute ago, if in early days you were to cut your arm and you didn't feel that pain, you would not know that it was time to take care of yourself. And in a much bigger and deeper way, when these repressed emotions and this trauma are knocking on the door of our consciousness and threatening to inform us of what our brain perceives as unsolvable problems, your relationship with your mother, the way you feel about yourself or your body, the way you feel about parenting are unsolvable problems. They're complex. They touch into a million areas of your life. You know what's a solvable problem? A migraine. The reason that the migraine, even though I call it safe in the unsafest way, of course, it's not really a solvable problem because anyone with a migraine disorder will tell you there's no quick solution. But the reason it's a solvable problem is the brain seeks predictability and something that you can, quote, handle. So if you can go take a pill or research a new diet change or go to a specialist or call your friend and cancel plans because you were overwhelmed in the first place and now you have an excuse, in the craziest way, it is actually a state of equilibrium for the brain and the nervous system. It wants to keep you in a place where at least perceptively you have some level of control. And so that's why all the symptoms are the alarm bell.
Yeah, it's almost safer to have a migraine or to have back pain or to have inflammation because there isn't shame in that versus the shame that the bring you to your knees shame. And it's why just like I said, your book had me in tears. I could I forget which part, maybe 2/3 of the way through. And I want to talk about journal speak, one of the key parts of the work that you guide people through. But your sharing, and I think it was an amalgamation of some of your patients and your own experiences, so raw. And I've been going through my own healing journey as facing the fire to the very best of my ability. And I love your Glennon Doyle quote, like, I can burn, like I'm okay, like I'm a rock, right? I love it, because we're so afraid, like, what if I can't face the flames of my shame? And as a CEO, as a mom, and a lot of the roles that I play, I mean, when things aren't going well and it's like, oh my God, it's so hard to admit that, yeah, I messed up. That's my mistake. And the older and braver that I've gotten, and it's why I was so emotional reading your words, it was like, oh, effing thank you. Right. And I've, it's like, I feel like you have to maybe cross the river a few times before, you really go, okay, like I've gotten to the next phase of the promised land. I don't think you ever really get there entirely, but kind of you're in different, levels of consciousness and awareness. But your emphasis and between your, you're sharing your own hard truths, and then your sort of wise, brave insistence for us to share our own difficult, painful truths. It's like, that's a game. I mean, like, ultimately, what are we all trying to do here? Experience emotional freedom. And that's in part why, I found your book so wonderful and helpful to me. And like, I think I said to you before we jumped on, I'm going to be giving it to a ton of people because that's ultimately what we all want. And in the absence of that, a lot of crazy behavior, and it's like, just we're not getting what we want. We're not getting the fulfillment. We're not as close to the people. I mean, we're kind of prisoners of our own making. But okay, so you partnered with Sarno, and then in the meantime, your health transformed.
Yes. So that's actually a great entry point into Journal Speak. So Dr. Sarno sits down with me, he explains to me the reservoir, he explains to me the problem. And I will say a lot of people are very versed in our society at explaining the problem. Even in my space, like I said, I love Bessel van der Kolk. I love Gabor Mate. I love people explaining what's going on because it really buoys my work. But very few people are living in the solution space, which is what I really seek to offer people. So I sat with Sarno. He explained to me what was going on. And then he said something that was rather unnerving. And he said, what you need to do is you need to know how you feel about your life. And I go, I know how I feel about my life. I'm like, I'm a mom. I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. He goes, maybe. He said, it's really helpful to journal. And I go, okay, buddy, you're telling me that I can't walk and my pain is that debilitating and I have this terrible abnormality. You want me to journal and that's going to heal me? And he goes, I want you to rewrite your neural pathways. I want you to understand what's going on in the brain. And yeah, I want you to feel better. Try exploring your life with a journaling technique. And so, as much as I thought it sounded like too simple to be true, I'm a rule follower and I also really wanted to get better. And so I went home and I made my lists, inventoried my childhood and my daily life and my personality. And I teach all of this in exquisite detail in the book. And I sat down with my lists and I remember I was writing about motherhood and I was journaling and I was saying, yeah, I'm really tired. 2 babies in cribs, 2 babies in diapers. That wasn't the plan. I got pregnant with my second one really quick. I'm playing my tapes. I'm doing what I was told to do. And all of a sudden, and you could call this a moment of spiritual awakening. You could call this whatever you want to call it. A voice came into my consciousness, my own voice, and said, "You're lying." And I was like, I'm not lying. This is true. This is all. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? I am telling the truth. And just something came across that just said, if it is true that there is a mind body connection that is so strong, if there is a protective mechanism of the nervous system that is so strong, it literally informs the brain that it's time to send pain signals into your body that stop you in your tracks. It is not hiding from the fact that you're tired. It is not hiding from the fact that you're overwhelmed. What is it? And I sat with that pen and my paper. And, now I journal speak on a computer, but back then I was just, and either way works, but I was on a longhand on a legal pad and I kept writing, what is it then? What is it? Like I was enraged. I was like, I want to get to this. And I wrote the first line of journal speak ever penned, which is, I hate being a mother. And that sentence alone, it was like bile rising in my throat because first of all, I didn't understand it because I had been wanting to be a mom since I was 10. I was told by the doctors at 19 it might never happen. Now I have this incredible opportunity to have these children, my own children. And I was like, what do you mean? And I just let the floodgates open. I just said, I am here for this. F it. Let's go. And I started writing and I was like, I'm bad at this. I'm failing. I don't like it. It's not what I expected. They don't look like me. They don't act the way I want. I'm not getting anything out of this. And I'm stuck in it for the rest of my life. And I've ruined everything. And I'm responsible for other people's lives. And it's the worst feeling I can possibly have. And I was gutted. And then I went at my parents. I went at myself. What's wrong with you? You're so weak. You can't have children. Everybody has children. And I went and I went and I went. And I arrived at this place, which felt very soft and very wrung out, which was when I was little and my family had its problems and I was an only child and I was rather lonely. And my parents, in my estimation, were making a lot of bad choices that I would have made differently. I made a pact with myself. This is something, by the way, Andrea, totally unconscious to me until this moment. I made a pact with myself that one day I would grow up and I would have power and I would have agency and I would create my own perfect, beautiful family and it would heal the wounds of my childhood. It would rescue me from all of those dark moments. And in my brain and nervous system's estimation, this is, I know in hindsight, the fact that that wasn't working, the fact that
did you feel like you were even repeating maybe some of the things that you'd experienced growing up unconsciously?
Honestly, quite frankly, I think I was doing the opposite. I was overcorrecting for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that can have a negative impact too.
Like the pendulum swing was so extreme. I was like, everything my parents didn't do for me, I was overdoing and putting so much pressure on myself to be perfect,
Sure. Yeah. Totally relatable.
So I came to all these conclusions and I sat with that moment of just total surrender. And I said, wow, not only did I
like laid bare, like naked,
bare, gutted. And I said to myself, wow, I didn't die. I said those things and I didn't die. And here's another incredible thing about journal speak. It doesn't stay true. As soon as I went all out on each thing, I was like, wait, I don't hate my children. Like, actually, this is amazing. Like it was just incredible. So the reason I'm saying all this is just the kind of the end of the story. We'll tie it up with a bow. And I say this because people need to know how profound this work is. And I have been doing a podcast every week since 2018. So there are hundreds of stories. You do not have to only hear my voice. You will hear it from hundreds of people around the world on my podcast. And in this book, the end of every chapter is somebody else's
Yeah,
story.
the case studies are incredible. And listening to your podcast, it's incredible. And there was another woman, I forget her name, something the Wellness Project or something.
Yeah,
Somebody interviewed
Elizabeth,
you.
yes.
Yeah, she's amazing. So, that really got my attention. It was like, wow, the testimonials are here. And don't hate me for this, but it's like, even if it's the, what is that called? Placebo effect. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like all these people are providing these very detailed testimonials and that your process works. And when I think about, again, when I think about my own son's health journey, we went all the Western approaches, and this poor kid still has this inflammatory disease, and it's been really tough on our family. I just think that it's like, this is, I think, the conclusion you got to. It's like, why not? It's like, suspend the judgment, suspend the disbelief. At this stage, you got nothing to lose.
No, exactly. And what happened to me is after that first journal speak session, and this does not happen for everyone because, there's no watching the clock. It's not helpful. Everybody does it at their own pace. But the way it worked for me is I woke up the next morning after that first journal speak session and my back pain was 80% gone, never to return. For 2 decades, I have never felt one moment of it. Now, I had all sorts of symptom imperatives as they move through my body. Yes.
Okay. And what's a symptom imperative for everybody?
Symptom imperative means that what we're teaching here in mind body medicine is that there is one genesis to all of this chronic stuff. It is because of this nervous system in fight or flight, which the human animal is not meant to spend long-term time in fight or flight. Fight or flight is meant for short bursts. And the human animal is the only animal that is able to have enough of an evolved brain to attach fear and meaning and projection to events. And so when the herd is at the watering hole and the lion walks through the savannah, the herd all gets very upset and starts to have that kind of telepathic communication between the herd. Are we going to run or not, right? Everyone's super tense. The lion kind of lopes to the end of the savannah and walks into the woods because the lion has fed or whatever. The moment the predator has left, the herd will shake it off, but will continue to be at the watering hole. We are the only species, the human species, that we are going to make meaning and continue to pre-grieve and catastrophize after something is over. So because of that, we are not meant to be in this long-term fight or flight, but we stay in it. And so that is what causes the protection to be necessary and sending the pain signals into the body to protect and distract.
Let me ask you this. ADHD is on the rise. You don't talk about it at all in your book. What I understand, I'm not an expert even kind of, what I understand about it, it's less of a diagnosis and saying like, I'm anxious, right? I mean, I feel like it's kind of reductive to even say ADHD because it seems like it's a nervous system disorder that kids who have experienced things that were challenging have caused them to lack focus, to be impulsive. I mean, that feels like again, I'm not an expert. And so I'm wondering, does mind-body medicine work on ADHD?
So the way I look at ADHD, first of all, I'm not a doctor either. So I'm not an expert. I do believe that neurodiversity is real. And I do believe that there are different ways, similar to what we said, right? We all look different on the inside. We all look different on the outside. There are different natures with which we are born. Some people are born really sensitive, and it is a real thing. Some people are born with like really permeable empathic boundaries. Like they feel the pain of other people. I see it all the time. And some people are more robust and have less permeable boundaries and can like be in the space of a lot of pain and suffering and not feel that impact. So I do believe that there are diverse brains and neurotypes. And I do believe that ADHD is a person with a certain subset of characteristics that's going to find different things a challenge. So through that lens, what I will say is the mind-body connection is present in every single thing that we experience. And so if you're a person born with either an anxious nature or with attentional deficit or with like an ASD1, which is like an autism spectrum disorder, but like really, really functional, and you just might feel differently socially and in different ways with transitions. If you're a person that feels like you have a specific neurodiversity, what you have to do is just say, okay, then, how can I see life through the lens of this and also communicate with myself in the most fluid way so I can make that more have more ease in life, have more ease in my interaction. So I don't necessarily think it's as cut and dry as it is a mind-body condition, but I do think everything needs to be kind of filtered through the mind-body lens.
And so going back, thank you for that. So going back to your, if you will, your prescription, you've got a 3-part program, Believe, which, by the way, I mean, you said something that I was like, yo, that's totally, she stole my line. You said our minds are more powerful than we realize, or I'm paraphrasing, which I say all the time, and I totally believe it. So the idea of belief, and even if it's the placebo effect, who cares if it's effective, right? So you say believe, and then you say do the work, and then you say be kind and patient with yourself. So what is your prescription for the work? And is it something that, is there a takeaway that somebody could do right after they watch this podcast?
Yes. Okay. The first thing I have to say, just because the word placebo effect can be so inflammatory mentally for people.
I'm getting in trouble.
No, you're not getting in trouble. Actually, you bring up, there's nothing I love more than debate. There's nothing I love more, and it's not that we're debating each other, but the debate of the theories and the debate of terms. The placebo effect kind of goes in the same basket as the word psychosomatic. And I use both of those. I actually probably psychosomatic is the one I really highlight in the book to help people understand why those are not helpful terms. Okay. This is your life. Okay. Let's just start there. Whether you believe that we come through here many times and we have many lifetimes or it's one and done, there's one thing that is inarguable, which is this is your specific life to be you with your heart and your kids and your family and your career and your you-ness. Okay. This is it for you. And since we know that, what we want to say is, how important is it to say, what will make my life freer, richer, better, deeper? What are we here for? Like you said before, we're here to connect. We're here to be present, and we're here to occupy the space that we've created for ourselves. That's it. I mean, that's why we're here, to feel big, to connect big. So if that's the case, I want you guys to look at terms like placebo and psychosomatic and say, but what if what's really happening underneath all these words is the simple brain science of survival? So now that goes back to the 3 facets of the work. Under believe, and I'll get to the work in just a minute, your perception is your reality. And by the way, this is another inarguable point. If you're walking down the street and you see a shadow and you are like, I think that's a person that could jump out at me, your entire body will then ready itself for fight, flight, freeze. You don't have a choice. Your nervous system will go into action. You're going to be drenched with cortisol and adrenaline, and your muscles will constrict, your circulation and your respiration will get faster. All of this stuff is beyond your control. And you know what? Thank God, because if we had to think about circulating our blood or breathing,
yeah, we'd really be stressed out.
It wouldn't be easy.
Oh my God, blood! Come on, go a little faster.
Move it. And so, because of that, it doesn't really matter if there's a predator behind the bush. What matters is what you believe. So whether you call that placebo, you call it psychosomatic, call it what it is. Your entire body is all a function of your understanding and your perception of your safety. You have no
well, and in that instance, I think you talked about this in the book. It's somebody who's bringing their dog out, right? And it doesn't matter that it's midnight. It's like, oh, the dog has got to go. We have a new puppy, so I've got dog on the brain. Yeah, and that whole business of your perception is your reality. And if you think it's, and I think Henry Ford said it, I'm going to butcher this, like if you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right? So okay, so number one, we've got believe. Now talk about the work, if you will.
So essentially what I did that day, when Dr. Sarno said journal, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah, like what the heck is that going to do?
Yeah. What I did was I created a practice called Journal Speak. I have honed it over years and years. And so essentially I found a sweet spot. And the sweet spot is this. If you are experiencing this emotional reservoir overflowing that is causing real physical situations for you, whether that be emotional, physical, meaning your anxiety is so crippling you can't leave the house, or it's causing your stomach to go sick, or your heart to beat too fast, or chest pains, there's that kind of emotional anxiety and physical. And then there is all the chronic conditions: back, neck, shoulder, knee, hip, fibromyalgia, long COVID.
Yeah, I'm going to get to COVID. We're going to get to COVID.
Okay. Long COVID.
Like dermatological, you like go through the whole freaking like A through Z conditions and food sensitivities. I mean, you go through it all.
Because the way it's showing up in your body is immaterial. It is coming from this genesis of this nervous system dysregulation, which is, by the way, becoming so widely accepted in the medical community, which is why I love it.
It's exciting. I mean, honestly, Nicole, I just want to say, it's exciting. And I'm excited for you to have this amazing new book and your courses. And just pause for a moment. You've got BodyCon. So before I forget, how do people get to BodyCon and what is that? Because I am with you, and I promise we'll flip back. I can't help myself. I want everybody to learn it and take advantage of it.
Andrea, you're such a fantastic energy, because I see it in your face. Like, you want people to wake up. You want people to be helped.
Sister. Yeah. That's why we're here.
Yes. Okay. Mind Your Body Con is what we're doing is an international virtual book club with me. I will be there in person. It is going to be the last week of February. The date is going to be announced very soon. And so essentially, if you purchase your copy of Mind Your Body between now and midnight Eastern time on February 8th, so you have a few days once this podcast airs, we are going to do this. It's a free ticket. There's no way to buy into it. It's all for people who are ordering it between now and that date. And it's going to be an incredible deep dive into the book. You will have been able to have the book for a couple weeks, so you will have been able to spend time with the information. And it will really be like answering all the frequently asked questions, being with the material, delving deep, helping people embody it, figure out how they want to do it for themselves. So all you have to do is go to my website, NicoleSachs.com, and click on the book tab, and you can enter in your email once you've purchased in your order number, and then you will be in the database to receive that invitation.
That is amazing. And I also just want to shout out, in addition to all the case studies in your book and on your amazing podcast, I genuinely love your podcast. You also have an incredible a private Facebook group with over 25,000 people who are supporting each other, who are sharing their stories and experiences. And I want to give huge props to you for you're at the head of this movement, right? So I kind of zigged us, I'm going to zag us back, where you were saying finally, much more of our society and medicine, and it's almost like it's this confluence of individuals and organizations saying, oh, maybe there is something to this. It's exciting to me, right? So, and I totally took you off track.
No. I got it. I have the thread. So you asked me about Journal Speak, and I was telling you, so essentially, if we are to imagine this reservoir, the only way to keep the nervous system from flying into this fight or flight for problems it can't solve is to lower the reservoir. The reservoir is bubbling up to here. What Journal Speak is, as crazy as this sounds, is a way to lower the reservoir. And as soon as you do it, as soon as you get it below maximum capacity, what's incredible is the pain signals stop firing. So Journal Speak is a 20-minute practice. I explain the whole thing in the book. I have, like you said, I have courses on my website that you can download and do this work in a much more like structured way if you need that kind of structure.
Yeah, kind of step by step.
Exactly. But the book really lays the entire thing out. So that might be all you need. And it is this targeted expressive writing practice. It's a 20-minute practice. You immediately destroy it. As one of my favorite clients used to say, it's like blowing your nose in a tissue. You do not need to look at it again. We are getting something out. It is unbridled. It is impolite. It is winning every argument you ever entered into, and no one else will ever see it but you. And once it is
setting yourself free. I mean, that's what it's just like, yes, permission to set yourself free. And you give, in the book, you give some really wonderful prompts. And, and you share some wonderful examples. And I like how it's like, you talk about, like, oh, okay, this thing kind of sucked or whatever. And then it's like, then you rip and you're like, okay, in fact, what do you say? So just say that you need to say. I'm like, she and I could be best friends forever. And honestly, when I think about my own life and why this is resonating so powerfully, oh my God, I personally hid for so long and I've accomplished a lot in my life and I still hid. Right. And so for me, my ability to tell the truth first and foremost to myself has enabled me as a mom, as a executive, as a friend, as all the different roles that I play. It's like, whoa, I am showing up like next level now. And so what I love is that you take this thing that is fucking free because it doesn't cost anything to journal. And you make such a cogent case for how it works. And it's not just your story. I mean, you talk about all these other stories and it's like, I love how you keep saying, suspend your disbelief, excuse me. Believe, don't suspend that. Suspend your disbelief, borrow my confidence if you need to. Like you really do a masterful job of being a very trusted friend and expert in this book. So I just, I love that. Okay. So you're going in, you've got the prompts, you're urging people, none of the superficial bullshit, like go there, tell that truth. It can take a little while. It can be scary as hell, but it has results. Then burn it. I love burn it, throw it away. However,
or delete if you're doing it,
whatever it is.
Delete it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And the reason you get rid of it is, okay, so let me just say one thing. The reason you get rid of it, by the way, is just to keep yourself safe. Okay. I say to people, when you learn to speak journal speak, it's like learning to speak a foreign language. You would never want somebody to read it that didn't speak the language, didn't understand that journal speak does not stay true. Journal speak is the rant of an inner 5-year-old. It's the kid who's kicking on the floor that says, Mommy, I hate you because you won't give me a cookie before dinner. You're the worst mommy in the world. Yeah, in 10 minutes after they've eaten dinner, they're hugging you and saying, I love you, Mommy. Like we all have these voices inside of us. It is the most beautifully and simply human thing you can be, is to be angry and sad and scared, and there's nowhere to put it.
You want to have permission. I mean, that's the thing. And I want to interrupt you for a second. I loved how you described Sarno saying to you, you're angry. And you're like, no, I'm not. And he's like, oh, no, like kind of like sanctimoniously. He's like, oh, you are. And there's amazing research. I forget the particular malady. I can't remember, but it's like I think Bessel talks about it in his book, The Body Keeps a Score, a particular malady that women who are really nice get. And it's like, oh yeah, we've seen this. And it's like, it's like cookie cutter. And I mean, this isn't meant to be sexist or anything. It's so many of us, but so many women are socialized to be nice, to not make waves, to swallow our anything, right? So that we can keep the peace. And where does that go? It goes somewhere in our body. And so there's so many examples that it's like, it's like you can't deny that our personalities and our deep desire to make things safe and to be okay. I mean, back to the beginning of this conversation, are impacting us physically, right? I mean, and that's what's exciting to me, that something is simple, and I love how you call it journal speak, something as deceptively simple as that can lead to such a profound amount of healing. I mean, it's incredible. Okay, but you say then you do the 20 minutes. It's really 20 minutes. If you could only do 5, you say do 5. But do your 20 minutes. Be honest. I love the phrase, whatever you resist persists. So like you got to go there. You got to tell the truth because it's only for you. Like only I can set myself free. right? I mean, I can sit here and continue to lie to myself. Doesn't get me anywhere. Maybe just makes my life worse, right? So you give us permission to tell that unbridled, painful, scary, ugly truth, and we free ourselves. And then, like you say, so often we're able to see it from a different perspective, a more gentle, wise perspective. But it's like that version of the story, it just fucking needs to get out.
It is the portal through which everything is that you want. Okay, so like if we just boil it down to the most basic thing, what do you want, right? What do you want? You want a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a marriage, a kid, money, a good job, a better relationship with your parents, success that you feel like your self-worth grows. Okay, what do you want? Whatever it is, I promise you, the blockage to that is in your own repressed space where you don't know how to get past it. You are saying, I don't know how to get to where I need to go. You won't know because the answers are within, but you can't tap into them. You don't have the vehicle. Journal Speak is a vehicle that brings you to the shore of what it is that you want. And oftentimes when people say, yeah, but I don't want to look at that dark stuff, Nicole. I don't want to look at those moments in childhood that were so painful. I don't want to look at my marriage because I'm not sure if I'm happy. I don't want to look at having children. What if I don't like them? They're mine. I'm stuck with them. And I say, right. But here is the thing. Life is a choice between what hurts and what hurts worse. And although that might seem negative on its face, it's actually a tremendous relief because once you realize that with everything in your life, there is some sort of a trade-off. If I always say the biggest example is, do I want to have that child? And the smallest example is, do I want to have that donut? And everything in between, and everything is weighed on what will be the immediate gratification or what will be what I really want and what will it take to have this thing. And we all are like that. I mean, the doctor might say, it's a good idea for you to eat less sugar. And for 10, 15 years, you might go, yeah, that's fine, but I like sugar and I'm going to eat it. And then one day, like you said, heart disease is the biggest killer. The doctor could come to you and say, right, if you don't change your diet, you're going to die. Now, in that moment, those scales of what hurts and what hurts worse will tip. And maybe it will hurt worse then to keep eating sugar, or, you'll be willing to deny yourself something because you're like, you know what? Now I choose this. Everything in life is that. So when you look at my work, when you look at this prescription and you say, yeah, but I don't know, what I'm saying is life is a choice between what hurts and what hurts worse. And yes, this will hurt. It hurts. It's hard.
Well, but the truth will set you free. And as cliche as it is, the older that I've gotten and the braver that I've personally gotten, the more it's like, oh, thank God I can put this burden down, and tell myself that truth. And again, I think about my own life and how I'm able to show up so much more effectively for the people that I care about. Okay, so it's 20 minutes of journal speak every day, faithfully. You got to have a habit, right? Those are all important things.
Just at the beginning. It's not a life. It's not a life sentence.
Right.
You really want to affect change in your body. Yes, consistency is important.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. And then you destroy it, delete it, however it goes, and then you got another important part of the work that should be a daily habit that actually I feel like should go on even if you're not doing your journal speak.
So I just say it's a 30-minute daily practice. And like I said, it's a sweet spot that I've honed over years and years with many thousands of people. 20 minutes of journal speak followed by 10 minutes of some kind of meditation. And you can say, I'm not a person who meditates. And I'll say, fine, walk slowly with the sun on your face, take a bath, go swimming and swim mindfully, like whatever it takes. But it is a bridge from the moment of journal speak that can feel really hard, that doesn't stay true, but requires that blatant honesty. And it's a bridge into the rest of your day because, there have been times where I've had to journal speak about the people closest to me and they're in the house, and like I have to really say some hard stuff because my inner child, that energy is causing me to have a headache or it's causing my shoulder to do a thing and like whatever it is. And I know this, sometimes I listen to myself with a newcomer's mind and I think, oh my God, that's going to cause your shoulder to stop hurting. Try me. Freaking try me. Because what happens is when you start doing this, your body becomes your proof. When you start putting a ladle in that reservoir and dumping it out through your journal speak practice and it's getting lower and lower, I want to tell you one story, Andrea, because I feel like it's very, very poignant. I have gotten over the years many, many emails that sound something like this. Dear Nicole, this is people I've never met. I had this diagnosis, complex regional pain syndrome, fibromyalgia, severe pelvic pain, whatever it is. And I decided that if I wasn't better by Christmas, I was going to need to take my life. Like I had been doing this. This is like a regular occurrence. I know. No, it's very, very deep. But this is a really good place. I know we're probably nearing the end of this conversation, and it's a really good place to leave people because this is why you hear the passion in my voice, okay? And they say, I didn't think I could go on. Actually, one story in the book is specifically this kind of story. And one night at 3:00 in the morning on Google, I did a deep dive and I found an interview you gave, or I found your podcast, or whatever it is. And for the last 6 months, I've been doing the work. And for the last 6 months, I have been brave and I've been going there and I've been suspending my disbelief because this feels so ridiculous and I can't believe it'll work. And I'm writing to tell you today that I'm back at work full time, that I'm getting married, that I'm having a baby. And the last line of this email is always the same. And I always have full body chills when I say it. Nicole, I can't believe I didn't know this work was an option for me. And there you find my purpose. There you find my passion. I would like to blanket the world in this knowledge. I would like to create the tipping point. I would like to rewrite the medical model. I want every person on the planet to know they have so much more power than they realize to affect their physical and emotional health. You are the expert. I know you would rather give away your power. We all would. I would rather.
We all just want to take a pill.
Give me the pill.
Right.
Give me the
pill. But that's only, I mean, let's face it, some pills are genuinely life changer, but a lot of the pills are just masking the freaking symptoms. They're not actually healing us.
Exactly.
So yes,
exactly. So I just, for every person out there that has written me that email, there are thousands and thousands more that aren't that dark, that aren't that stuck. But you know what? Life should be more beautiful maybe than it is. They should have more energy. They want to be able to connect more. They want to be able to get more successful. This is for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's back to the truth will set you free. Nicole, you've done such a brilliant job of laying it out and being a amazing, like I said, kind of guide and friend and expert. And even the way that you write, it's like, oh, I'm just sitting down with this really smart, super awesome, confident, kick-ass person who's holding my hand and encouraging me and telling the truth and encouraging me to tell that scary truth along the way. Let me though ask you one last thing. If you have a few more minutes.
Yes, I do. Love it.
Okay. Because we talked about, because I mentioned long COVID and I said, I promise we're going to talk long COVID because that is very relevant to a lot of people. How has your method helped people who have long COVID symptoms?
Okay, this is a thank you for reminding me to get back to this. This is so important right now. When COVID hit at the very beginning of the pandemic, immediately I knew. I said, wow, I'm just going to sit and wait and see what the fallout is, because it was a moment where the entire world at the same time was in heightened fight or flight. Not only were we uncertain of what this virus could do. Young people were dying too. People that were young and 40 were dying. It was so sudden. There were no hospital beds in Italy. Like when everything was going up and up and up, I thought to myself, all right. And there was a huge stigma. Like at the beginning, if you had COVID, it was like, go in a room and don't come out for 6 months. Nobody wanted to be near you.
Quarantine. Remember the quarantine rules?
Remember it well. And so essentially, when I started hearing about the symptoms of long COVID, I was listening carefully and I heard the subset of these symptoms. And there are many, but I'm going to name a few. Chronic fatigue, brain fog, migraines and headaches, chest tightness, trouble getting a deep breath, increased anxiety. I mean,
brain fog.
Yeah, brain fog. I mentioned that. So all of these subset of symptoms, nerve pain, and anything you were hearing about. Every single one of them, I've for 20 years been in the field, over 20 years, has been completely resolved with my work because it is nervous system dysregulation beyond. So I'm listening to the subset of symptoms and then I'm reading article after article about like long COVID. It's the next epidemic. There's no solution. People are suicidal. People are on long-term disability. It was so dark. So I started talking about it. I made my first video only a few months into the pandemic. I put it up on YouTube and I said, guys, this is what's happening in your body for anyone who cares to listen. So apparently somebody was listening. This is like all these people I've never met, but I know the stories. A Dutch influencer was listening, and she used my work to completely heal herself. Now she's all influencing, and she is speaking about it in the Netherlands. Then there's Lika. Now Lika listens to this influencer. Now Lika is in the depths of the worst long COVID story you could hear. I mean, confined to her apartment, early 30s, completely bereft, went from like traveling the world and being, completely, a fit person to not being able to walk from her couch to her kitchen without needing to like sit and like really recover. For months did not have enough energy to shower or bathe. So she was giving herself a sponge bath in her bed. So, I mean, I'm giving you how extreme it can be. She heard about this influencer. She came to my website. She started learning. She was doing, she thinks she did my Freedom from Chronic Pain course. Little by slowly, she starts to get better. And then she starts to get better. And now she's completely well. It takes time. She's doing her journal speak. She's doing her meditation. So she contacts me and she says, I had this horrible long COVID. I am completely better. And I said, come on the podcast. So then she comes on the podcast. Her story, by the way, is also the end of chapter 1 in my book because it was such a powerful story. I interview her, and this sets off a global conversation, and it is spreading everywhere. And I'm hearing from people all over the world, oh my God, I was down with long COVID for 2 years. Your work completely resolved. I'm back. I'm all better. And then I hear from Gary. Gary is in a remote village in New Zealand. He had never heard a podcast before. He's in his 60s, and he was having long COVID so bad that he was all the same things, exhaustion and fatigue and brain fog. He had aphasia. He could not speak properly. He could no longer communicate with people on the phone. There's such a spectrum of long COVID, but the reason I always highlight the most extreme cases is so people understand that there is hope. He heard Lika. No, he didn't even hear her because he'd never heard a podcast. He read a newspaper article that had been written about Lika. He listens to my podcast. He was so cute. He was like, I didn't even know what a podcast was. He listens to my podcast and then he does the work. He heals completely. He's back to hiking. He's back to hunting. He's back to being himself. He contacts me. I have him on the podcast. His stories in the book. So all I want to say is this is a movement. This is a movement of millions and millions of people that will take back their lives one at a time, and it will be a groundswell of people that will create this tipping point so that everybody in the world knows this is an option.
Well, I love how you talk about this is bottoms up versus a modern Western medical is much more top down. So it's really empowerment at its core. Let me ask you, this is a little bit of a tough question, but I'm a big believer in facing the objections. Somebody that I really admire and follow is a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's been discredited and it's quack science. I totally disagree with that. Have you had that leveled at you? Hey, this is quack science. This is bullshit. And if you have, how do you dispel those objections?
What's really funny, Andrea, is like not that much, but I'm really waiting for it though. Check me in a few weeks after this book comes out, because this is like, although podcasts go around the world, they have a niche audience. Not everyone's heard of it. But when you have a book like this that's going to be translated into languages all over the world, I'm going to hear it. And so here's what I'll say. I have heard it a little bit. I know Joe. I know his work. I also think it's excellent. Here's what I will say. Anybody who says it's quack science, I would look at them in their proverbial eye and I would say, before you are willing to throw this out, can you replace your anger, your fear, your resistance with curiosity? Because if you are not well, what is your life worth? Might you be willing? Because that's the best way to do it. And I think another reason that people are less likely to do that to me is because I always lead with my own story. I see this similar to some recovery programs. I see this work as a program of attraction, not promotion. I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm here to give you a choice and to live my best life. And if I want something that you have, if I have something that you want, then then come over and sit by me. And, I am sure I will hear it. But, here's another thing. And I think this will help Joe and this will help a lot of people out there. The science is really on our side and it's really catching up.
100%.
It's changing the
100%.
game. I will say, I don't even know how many pages of scientific studies I have linked in this book, but it's pages. So I have a whole chapter on brain science. So hopefully when people lead with the science, they understand that this is literally what's happening in the human body and you ignore it at your detriment.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. And honestly, you use the flat earth example. I use the example because I'm a big believer in, back to our minds are more powerful than we realize. And, the use of psychedelics to heal. And, there's so much in our, that we don't know about our own consciousness and the power of meditation. There's so much evidence that it works and it is real. You talk about like flat earth. I think about, before in the days of Copernicus and Galileo, we thought, hey, we're at the center of the universe. Not so fast, right? And I think about Niels Bohr and subatomic particles. So when I think about the naysayers who are like, yeah, nah, I just want to say, yo, slow down, because there's been so much in science that was previously discredited out of pure ignorance. So it's like, I love how you say, like, be curious, like, open your mind. There are so many examples of how your methods work. And I think we should end it there because we could talk for days. I'd love to get you back on the podcast.
Forever.
Yeah, totally. Nicole, you're amazing. Congratulations. And thank you for your brilliant work and this brilliant book. I genuinely hope everybody listening, if you feel like, hey, I don't have a chronic condition or chronic pain, great, good for you. You know somebody who does. So no matter what, get Mind Your Body by Nicole Sachs. And I hope you can make it to BodyCon. Mind Your Body.
Mind Your Body Con. Mind Your Body Con.
Yeah. I'm going to be there. And thank you, Nicole. Good. I wish you all the best. You've done amazing things. It's already helped me and my family. And I hope it gets to many millions of more people. So
thank you. Thank you, Andrea. It's been so fun talking to you today.
Oh my gosh. I hope you loved that episode as much as I loved creating it. Oh man, she's amazing. Nicole has an incredible event at the 92nd Street Y. That's in New York City on February 5th. But if you're not in New York, don't despair. You can buy a virtual ticket if you go to her website, NicoleSachs.com. She also has a really cool live event in LA on February 13th. And then she's going to be upstate New York at the famous and extraordinary Omega Institute in June, where you can do a deep dive with Nicole. And like she says, nobody leaves as the same person. So again, folks, if you have chronic pain or a chronic condition or anxiety that's really inhibiting your life, or if you know somebody who does, just try it. Suspend any disbelief you might have. And by the way, if it works, let Nicole know and let me know, because I am all in. I have been using very similar techniques and it's transformed my life. So I'm excited to see all the brain science and everything that Nicole has pulled together to be at the forefront of this incredible movement. Lastly, if you are not following this show, please follow and like it. And as always, you can reach me at gettingopen@yourtango.com. Write to me. Tell me what you love. Tell me what guests you would like to have. And let's get into it. I'm here for you. I am bringing this show to you with my full heart, and I hope it's making an impact. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.